For today, we will discuss about best practices for deploying the entire Workato embedded platform. Together with me, Carly, Head of Solution at Workato, and I'm Alex, Product Manager responsible for the Embed division. We will go very quickly today, initially, just to allow you to have more time to spend with Carly and to expand this topic, because we know that deployment is the most important part. I mean, you did something, you tested, you created your own connector, and now you're ready to deploy to multiple customers. That's interesting. That's a very good problem to have. So just to give you a bit of background, I mean, managing the integration at scale, it's crucial for your success. As always, when you start doing something initially, everything is, okay, good. But now you want to deploy. So I mean, the first customer is, okay, good, we did it. Then the second, the third, and maybe other customer even more. So in this case, we always try to provide you tools in this case, and also to help you with whatever we created. So for instance, we have, when you really want to scale, you want to fulfill your entire CI/CD. You want to cover maybe dev, test, and prod, and that's the reason why in phase one, what we are trying to do, what we will deliver in Q3, is this environment concept that we longly discussed yesterday. So basically, for your customer, for you and for your customer, you will have the possibility to have multiple environments. So you will be able to start from dev, do something, do everything, maybe also use the test automation part, and then migrate, or maybe move and deploy to test. And then whenever you're ready, finally go in production. This will be for sure backward compatible, but there is more. So as I said, this is only the beginning. This is the phase one. Right now, you did everything using the recipe lifecycle management. In the future, using recipe lifecycle management and all the other deployment enhancement. A look ahead of, again, what we already said about the environment part. This is something that we are still working to finalize. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach me. I will be here for a while. Anyway, this is a feature that we will release very soon, compatible with your admin and also with your customers, fully API-based. So this means that you will be able to use, or maybe your customers will be able to use our UI or using the API, and anyway, still compatible with the recipe lifecycle management. As we said, and as we heavily discussed during our last CUB meeting, there is more coming. I mean, this is not yet a promise. I mean, just to be clear, this is not already in our roadmap, but those are just ideas that we will keep discussing with you. Today, I had another amazing meeting with a customer. I mean, there are two big areas that we want to explore in the future. The first one is how to allow you to create an integration, not anymore a recipe, that is reusable without, let me say, without reinventing the wheel, without every time editing the recipe, without creating a branch of your recipe. And this is what we mean with the same integration concept. And the other one is that, okay, Karel will show you a lot of cool features that we already did that are already available, but we want to support even more. We want to simplify everything regarding the deployment part. And with this, let's pass to Carly.
Okay, so quick look, obviously, into what is upcoming. What we wanted to focus on today, though, was, watch your step, too, sorry, is what exists. So we have the idea of Workato accelerators. If you're not familiar with this concept, it is an entire team at Workato that uses Workato to package up solutions that can help, as the name implies, accelerate business processes. So we have these all over our organization, things like order to cash as an accelerator, procure to pay, automated onboarding, employee kind of app provisioning, all of those things that might be millions of recipes, lots of lookup tables, lots of environment properties. We bundle them up, basically, give them over to you as a package. It's our way of using Workato to essentially give you new functionality, new use cases, and new ways of doing things, so you don't have to go develop it yourself. So the idea of Workato accelerators is someone made those for you already, and they're bundled up and they're ready to go. Why we're talking about that today is, as Alessio kind of alluded to, we've got some stuff upcoming for environments, easier deployments, easier experiences for you, but they are, as we mentioned, upcoming. They don't exist today. So what can you do as you think about scaling your embedded offering to 5, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000 customers in an easy way to manage? So we're going to talk about 2 accelerators available today that you can go to your account manager, ask them for those assets, and we can work on you to help them get deployed. The beauty of these accelerators is, as I mentioned, they use Workato already, so they've got tons of recipes that back this functionality. If you need to change a system, if you need to change a step, if you need to change a configuration, they're for you to make your own, to make them work with whatever business processes, but they sure are a way to get 90% there. You add that last 10% to potentially customize to your world. So the first one that we're going to look at is related to CI/CD processes. We're talking about deployment. This makes a lot of sense, right? Essentially, how are you going to promote assets, recipes, and all of their dependencies at scale to all of your customer accounts? And to the idea of environments, also between your different environments within your admin account as well as the different environments within your customer account. So we do this through an embedded specific accelerator called our CI/CD tool. You might be familiar with this, but it exists today, and it's something that we would highly encourage you to consider if you're thinking about CI/CD processes within your own business, incorporating those into how Workato thinks of CI/CD as well. A bit of a busy slide, but really at the end of the day, everything is done through a Slack or Teams interface. And what we're going to be able to do through this bundled up, I think there's about 80 recipes in this, 10 lookup tables. It's a lot of assets, but things that you probably don't really need to touch, essentially allowing you to be able to configure projects, recipes and all their assets, inside of a tool like Slack or Teams, create really easy releases, go through that entire process, releasing a project into a different environment, going through and actually integrating down here with GitHub to ensure you've got quality review, where you could potentially do merges and pull requests, getting that back up into different environments, both in your partner workspaces as well as your end customers. So it's a really cool way to go through that process, live within Slack, Teams, GitHub perhaps, and get everything from one environment to the next through the right checks and balances, the right people approving, and the right set of assets to make sure that this is working for you and your business. Now, what I'll say, the beauty of accelerators is, yes, today it works for Slack, it works for Teams, it works for GitHub. Let's say you came to me and said, Carly, I use GitLab. We don't have that out of the box, but we've got 2 recipes in this workflow that you'd switch GitHub to GitLab, right? And so ideally, as your business might have different requirements, this is still getting you very close to where you need to be to get that process done. So another kind of visual of that, if you will, is essentially the idea that you live in Slack or Teams. You go through these different types of views. You're going to have packages in your admin workspace, and maybe you have many admin workspaces, dev, test, prod. It works against however many environments you have till we release, hopefully, some more official environment type of experiences. You'll be able to go through, create a release, look at that release of all of the recipes that get broken down into JSON files into something like a GitHub, and deploy it back out through clicks of buttons, through different roles and permissions, through different people involved, through an interface like Slack that makes it a lot easier to kind of get that out the door. So you're not have to getting people into Workato even as much. They don't even have to know that the tools behind this is recipe lifecycle management, because we've taken care of it. It's kind of obfuscated away from you. And that's kind of how the whole process works. Let's take a look at it in action. And this is going to be pretty sped up. All of these are assets that are accessible to you. If any of this looks a little too quick, we just have not a lot of time today. So all of these are the assets you get. Tons of different folders, tons of recipes, all the things running behind the scenes. This is what it looks like. You'd go into Workato, you'd click on Workbot. For those who might be familiar with Enterprise Workbot, it is not that, so I'm not charging you for this. And then you're going to see something across solution management, on-demand deployments, approvals, administration. I made a command. I'm going to say, I want to view a release inside of this interface, it's going to say, hey, what's your manifest ID? What is the type of assets you're looking to go and basically consolidate? So this is moving fast, but we're making a quick manifest of all of those assets. Let's say it's a Salesforce integration you want to bundle up. We're going to go ahead and take that ID and throw it in here and say, this is the new repo. Eventually it's going to go into GitHub. I'm defining it as a major release, saying, hey, this is going to be the name of the folder that it's going to live in with some comments. This is going to go ahead and said, okay, submitted a release. All of this is running through recipes. Hopefully you've never had to touch, you just installed. And it's going to bring you into a channel to say, hey, Carly made this pull request. And then I get to go into GitHub or whoever is doing this and say approved or merge, however you want to go about it. And then from there, I can start to actually go and look at the release. I can say, hey, this was what I'm trying to track. If I go and bring it up, I should be able to go and see what version I'm at and what stage in the pipeline I am. So I can see that I've released it. I haven't deployed it yet. But I can go ahead and do that through the interface as well. Again, this is moving fast. Somebody else maybe in this channel is going to say, awesome. Let me see if I can move that. And then from there, I can still continue to track. I'm going to be able to manage it. I'm going to be able to go say what stage is it in. And whoever is kind of monitoring this type of process is going to see, again, in the pipeline, I've now released, I've deployed. And I can go ahead and now select my customer accounts to deploy it out to. So that was from the admin perspective. From here, I can start to select all the customers I want to roll it out to as well. You can select one, many, or all. And it's going to go ahead and push that out to your customer accounts as well. Again, running off of 1 million recipes that you hopefully don't need to touch. And so as it's going out there and it's pushing out to those customer accounts, again, I can quickly manage the solution. I can see what stage it's at, start to see different types of versions that people are on. So as I look at this specific customer, I can see that they're on a deployed version of 1.0. I can see that another one that I've deployed is 3 steps behind and upgrade them to the new version as well. So a lot of different types of management, different types of projects that you would be able to kind of go through and control. And at the end of the day, again, to echo, these are tons of recipes and hopefully you're only needing to touch ones here and there. The really cool thing about accelerators is I'm basically saying, hey, this environment is called test EU. Maybe I have 8 environments. Or maybe I've done something super funky. You're changing a property here and there in those recipes and things scale behind the scenes. So it should be customized to your business. It should be customized to the solutions that you work within. And hopefully it's a little bit of tweak here and there. At the end of the day, hopefully it's making your life easier to kind of manage these solutions. Again, once we release official environments where you'll have a set dev test prod, this will adapt to work alongside that as well. But for a lot of our customers, it's really nice to incorporate this into a pipeline that you already have existing. Many people want to see a diff in GitHub between their recipe versions. This is the way to do it, to kind of flash GitHub really quickly, but it lets you have another repository of that kind of data consolidation to really go and make it all work together. So this is really from a CI/CD perspective. Again, available today. If you go and you look at the manifest of it, it is crazy how many things are actually operating behind the scenes for this. If that's any consolation to say, don't go do this yourself. Take a look at the accelerator and hopefully you can just make it work for your business. Cool, so that was around CI/CD. We're going to kind of pivot to a different type of deployments. When we say deployment, I think it means a lot for the embedded world. One side of it is, how can I kind of reach 1 million customers really quickly and do that in a way that scales? The other side of it is, how can I make a deployment strategy in which I'm giving my customers the right experience with recipes? So by nature of what we say is our embedded platform, we have a lot of user experiences that we can provide to your end customers. Oftentimes when we think about deployment, it's not necessarily your traditional DevOps deployment with a CI/CD background. When we think of deployment, sometimes it is, how can I extend my reach of connectivity to my customers by launching what we consider a connector marketplace? So that to me is saying, hey, I really want my team to be able to say yes to more integrations. I want to offer every single CRM integration out there that I can. So kind of not necessarily CI/CD related, but it's still a deployment in a sense that I want to be able to deploy an experience to my customers. We do this through, again, a new accelerator that we released in the last quarter called our App Marketplace Accelerator, available today. And that essentially is a way to allow you, through a series of recipes that get exposed as API endpoints. So if anyone's familiar, Workato can essentially take recipes and expose them through an API management layer called our API platform, and turn them into REST endpoints. For anyone who is familiar with that, that has been something that we have charged for in the past, our API management platform. This accelerator allows you to use that tool in your administrative account for free of charge. So essentially what this is doing is it's bundling up a ton of recipes that essentially serve as microservices that you can plug into the back end of a front end that you create for a marketplace. So if you walk with me here, you've got a product, you're trying to essentially achieve some type of marketplace nirvana, if you will. You know what your customers are asking to connect to. It's probably something similar to this with a lot of tiles, a lot of logos, all that good stuff. And you need a reusable way for people to click buttons and deploy and get started on those. And if you go to your engineering team right now and ask them to go create that, they're gonna say, well, I don't really know how to make that reusable. How do I make sure that the logic I put in place for Salesforce as a marketplace is the same as Jira? So this entire accelerator is a bundled up set of recipes that lets you scale this. So let's say I come in tomorrow and want to add NetSuite. I put NetSuite and a couple parameters into a lookup table, create a couple NetSuite recipes that are pretty turnkey, and then the accelerator just kind of works. So if you don't really believe me, here's some of the behind the scenes. We'll show another video of what this looks like. But essentially, for the accelerator, it's a ton of recipes that are basically exposed to that API platform. It's going to let you do things like list connectors, get the integrations for that type of connector. When I click a button, it's going to run a series of APIs that will create that customer account, give them all of the recipes for that specific connector, allow them to start or stop said connectors. And so a lot of things that might seem kind of easy point and click type of interactions, but in a way that scales so you can easily add things to your marketplace. I'll come back to this in a second, but I'm going to show you what that looks like behind the scenes here. So again, what we're looking at is the series of assets that you would go ahead and get from this accelerator. Tons of recipes. I think this one is about 25 or so. And then it is going to give you all of these endpoints. So you're going to see all of these. This is our API platform behind the scenes talking to recipes, but essentially a series of endpoints that become reusable logic to put in the back end of your application. Things like listing a connector that has caching enabled, so it's really quickly responsive on your front end. When I go ahead and click into something, I might list the installed integrations for that specific application. So all of these essentially are what you will call from the back end of your application, and then behind the scenes is doing a lot of really cool things to make those things all connect and work. This is essentially the lookup table that powers that marketplace. Again, I can add a new line. I'm putting in logo URLs. I'm basically categorizing everything. So now I'm not telling engineering to go host a table of what the marketplace could be. You might have someone that comes in and just adds that themselves. And then hopefully if you're rendering the logic correctly in the front end, it'd be really easy for someone to go in and just add new. And that kind of renders new on the marketplace as well. So again, it's a back-end type of accelerator with tons of assets, but hopefully allows you to manage a marketplace in a way that might not need to involve your engineering team as heavily. But again, I will emphasize for all of you, if you would like to use this, you're still creating that UI. That's important for us, for you to create the marketplace how you'd like, since we don't really want to dictate that from a UI perspective. On the front end of this, what might that look like? Let's assume Rocket ERP is one of our embedded partners, and they wanted to use this accelerator. So this would be essentially their application. And as they go through, they might have now created their own app marketplace. This is pulling an API at the moment. Logos don't look too good, but they're pulling an API to essentially grab all this data, categorize it, because the lookup table already had that defined. Then if they go ahead and say, I want to connect into Salesforce, we're calling another endpoint to say, get me all of the different projects that I've made for that Salesforce integration. So again, things you don't have to hold it within your own database, your own server-side information. Calling Workato in real time to say, hey, these are all of them. When I hit install integration, this is your UI, but it's calling a series of APIs right now through to us to create that customer account, give them all of these integrations as a new version, update the lookup table with a bunch of audit activity to say that I, as a user, downloaded that. And then from there, you're able to do things like go ahead and connect to that system. For those who might be, familiar, that was our authentication widget, an iframe that you can bring up into your application, let a user log in. From here, it's going to make that connection. And now I can see something like a start. Again, another API from the Marketplace Accelerator to start that integration. You can now see if we go into that specific customer's account, they have this new version of the recipe, it's connected, and it's started. And now they're kind of up and running. Again, we do also have onto this accelerator full audit trails. Whenever anyone stops, when anyone starts, whenever they download, it's going to a lookup table as well, so you can see that full auditability of what a user is doing. Hopefully that doesn't mean that you have to track it on your side. It's on the admin side as well. So that is another version of a accelerator. This is really kind of the not most beautiful view of what this looks like, just from a process perspective. But it's a cool way of thinking about an accelerator. One had you interacting in Slack and Teams and doing a bunch of cool stuff with external systems. This one is actually just all exposed REST endpoints that you plug into your product. And again, because you're going to get this package, because you're going to get all of these APIs, you could do a ton of things. Let's say at the end of the day, when someone installs that integration, I want to add a step to inform the CSM that they did. Or let someone know, right? You're changing probably one recipe by adding a step, sending that Slack message along, and configuring it just a little bit more to make it fit your business. But ideally, we have given you 95% of what you need to go roll that out into your UI. So all of these things, well, these two are available today. I will say we have a lot of accelerators that exist, whether they are embedded focused, which is about a half dozen now, or they're fully for the entire platform. They likely apply to things that you're trying to automate. If you're in kind of the financial world, take a look at our order to cash. Who knows? You might be able to plug your platform in for one of the ERPs that's being used, right? So highly encourage you to take a look at the accelerators, highly powerful. We do a very big focus, though, to make some of them embedded specific. Those two that I mentioned on the CI/CD and the marketplace are very, very highly valued, I'll say. And we are always working with you guys to make new versions. CI/CD is on its second or third iteration right now, so work with us to make it better. We want to put that work in, so hopefully you don't, and it helps your processes.